Hi, I'm Gagan. Due diligence and due care are two important cybersecurity risk management concepts that you must understand both for the CISSP exam and as a cybersecurity professional. Due diligence is all about systematic research and information gathering. It's a process of investigating and understanding the security landscape to identify potential risks before implementing protective measures. This includes analyzing threats, reviewing requirements, and assessing how well protected systems currently are. It is also called the knowing part of the security. That means it focuses on gathering intelligence, understanding vulnerabilities, and building awareness of your risk exposure, essentially creating the knowledge foundation upon which security decisions will be based. Due care, on the other hand, focuses on implementation. It is about the concrete actions you take to mitigate identified risk and protect assets. This includes applying security patches, enforcing policies, training staff, and responding to incidents. This is the doing part of security, where you actively put controls in place based on the risk identified during due diligence to defend your systems and data from threats. While these concepts work hand in hand, they serve different purposes in your security strategy. Due diligence helps you make informed decisions, while due care demonstrates that you are taking reasonable steps to prevent harm. Let's break down the key differences in more detail. First, the focus. Due diligence is proactive investigation and planning. Due care is the reactive implementation of security measures based on what you have learned. Next is timing. Due diligence typically happens before implementing controls or making decisions. Due care is ongoing and happens after risks are identified. Due diligence ensures informed decisions by identifying vulnerabilities and compliance gaps. Due care applies reasonable precaution to prevent harm and mitigate risks. Here are some of the examples. When you perform a security audit to identify vulnerabilities, that's due diligence. When you patch those vulnerabilities, that's due care. Evaluating a vendor's security practice before partnering with them is due diligence. Continuously monitoring their compliance with your security requirements after signing the contract, that is due care. Developing an incident response plan based on risk analysis is due diligence. And actually executing that plan during a breach is due care. These concepts aren't just theoretical, they have serious legal and regulatory implications. In many jurisdictions, organizations must demonstrate both due diligence and due care to show that they have taken reasonable steps to protect sensitive information. If your organization experiences a breach, regulators and courts will ask, did you perform appropriate due diligence to identify risk? Did you exercise due care by implementing reasonable controls? Failing either test could result in penalties, lawsuits, or reputational damage. For example, if you identified a critical vulnerability through due diligence but failed to patch it, which is due care, you could be found negligent. As a cybersecurity professional, documenting both your due diligence activities and due care implementations creates an evidence trail that can protect your organization if questioned. Let's talk about how these concepts work together in practice. Due diligence and due care form a continuous cycle. First, you perform due diligence by identifying and assessing risk. Then, you implement due care by applying controls to mitigate those risks. Over time, you conduct ongoing due diligence to identify new risks and then update your due care measures accordingly. This isn't a one time process, it's a continuous process. As threats evolve, regulations change, and your organization grows, both due diligence and due care must adapt. For example, when a new vulnerability is announced, due diligence involves assessing if your systems are affected. Due care involves applying the patch promptly if you are vulnerable. The strongest security programs recognize that these concepts reinforce each other. Due diligence without due care means you know about the risk but aren't addressing them. Due care without due diligence means you're implementing controls blindly without understanding your actual risk landscape. Understanding the distinction between due diligence and due care is absolutely essential for management focused cybersecurity assessments, certifications, and job interviews. Let me share five key takeaways that will help you master these concepts. First is the legal liability perspective. Remember that due diligence and due care are evaluated from a legal liability standpoint. Due diligence demonstrates you have investigated risk, while due care shows you have taken reasonable steps to mitigate them. In assessments and interviews, you may encounter scenarios asking you to identify whether an organization has fulfilled its legal obligation through proper due diligence, due care, or both. The second point is documentation requirements. Management focused assessments emphasize that both processes must be documented. For due diligence, this means maintaining records of risk assessments, vendor evaluations, and compliance reviews. For due care, documentation includes patch management logs, security policy acknowledgements, and training records. Remember, in security governance, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. Next point is very important. For certifications and interviews, you must understand the prudent person rule. This rule states that organizations must take the same security steps that any reasonable security professional would take in the same situation. For example, if most companies patch critical vulnerabilities within 30 days, your organization should too. Assessments will often test if you can identify when security practices fall below this standard. Remember, due diligence means investigating and understanding risks thoroughly, while due care means implementing appropriate controls to address those risks. Both should meet the prudent person standard. For management focused assessments, understand that due diligence and due care aren't one time activities. Certification exams and interviewers may test your knowledge of how these processes must be continuously updated as threats evolve, technologies change, and new vulnerabilities emerge. Static security measures fail the due care test over time. Various cybersecurity frameworks emphasize that while security professionals implement these concepts, organizational leadership bears ultimate responsibility. Assessments may evaluate your understanding of how due diligence and due care must be supported by governance structures, adequate resource allocation, and executive commitment. Security professionals advise, but leaders must ensure compliance. Mastering these five key takeaways will help you successfully navigate questions related to due diligence and due care in certification exams and job interviews, particularly those focused on security and risk management. Thank you for watching this focus guide on due diligence and due care for cybersecurity professionals. I'll see you in the next cybersecurity video. Thank you.